And thank you, Governor, for your strong leadership on this issue. Thank you for calling this important issue to the attention of this committee. And I think it's an area that has been overlooked by the federal government, as you have eloquently pointed out. I wanted to ask you the question. I know you've met with or talked to the President. I know you've met with Secretary Napolitano, Attorney General Holder. When asked earlier this month, the Attorney General was asked why the Office of National Drug Control Policy has a southwest and northern border counter-narcotic strategy, but does not have a Caribbean border strategy. His response to that was, when one looks at the Caribbean, Puerto Rico in particular, I think we need a strategy. And so my question to you is, what is the federal strategy for the Caribbean region?
At this very moment, as far as we see it, our state law enforcement agencies are working very closely together with the local offices of those federal agencies, but there is no strategy. At this very moment, actually, that is exactly what we're asking, that there be a strategy so that all the existing resources could be brought to bear to protect what we have called America's Caribbean border. And it affects American citizens residing both in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, but it also affects every American citizen in every city across America. And what we're asking is that there will be a comprehensive interagency strategy for the U.S. Caribbean Border Initiative, and that this will bring and bolster resources, funding, and staffing of federal law enforcement agencies throughout the region, which are at this moment, as I mentioned earlier, are understaffed. Also, it will allow us to and ensure that Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands are included in any border security and drug trafficking initiatives that at this very moment we're not. Actually, I'll go even further. At this moment, the nation has a strategy in the Caribbean with foreign countries. Since both the USVI and Puerto Rico are part of the U.S., we're excluded from that strategy and those meetings. By the same token, there is a strategy for the southwest and the northern borders, but none for the Caribbean border. Thus, at this very moment, we fall between the cracks, and we're nowhere to be found.
So as I understand it, we have a strategy for the northern and southern borders, but not for what I call the third border, and that's the Caribbean. There's no federal strategy.
Exactly.
And I know you've come forward with a plan of your own in terms of creating one. What would be your top priorities in that type of strategy and that plan?
Well, first of all, we need to identify existing resources and be able to create a comprehensive interagency strategy for the region that includes and encompasses both the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico.
What additional, we talk about resources. These are obviously tough budgetary times, but this is such a critical area. And we've seen a 30% increase in narcotics coming through this region. As we seal the southern border, we're seeing an increase of this flow of trafficking. And yet, as you stated, there is no federal strategy. What would you need and what needs to be done in terms of shifting a focus of resources to Puerto Rico and to the rest of the Caribbean?
This will entail protecting our coasts. In the case of just Puerto Rico, we have over 300 miles of coast that has to be protected. As I mentioned earlier, we're doing what we need to do in terms of all the cargo coming in. We are handling at this moment 92% of the domestic cargo with reviewing everything that is in those containers. And we have just entered into an agreement with CBP to be able to also inspect international cargo. We must make sure that CBP indeed has the resources working alongside with us to be able to handle that. Otherwise, we will provide the resources. We don't have a problem with that. Secondly, we need the resources to protect our coastline. That will require, for example, fixed-wing airplanes that at this moment operate out of Florida, but have to cover the Caribbean, which makes little sense, and vessels as well. The eastern side of Puerto Rico at this very moment, which is the closest to the USVI, does not have a vessel, a Coast Guard vessel, permanently operating in that area. And we have seen an upsurge in not just drug trafficking in the region, but drug-related violence as well. Actually, I mentioned one of our joint strike forces with the federal government encompasses working on illegal crimes and actually violent crimes with illegal arms. We are expanding that initiative to two eastern sectors or regions, police regions, because of the upsurge we have noticed in drug trafficking and violence in that part of the island.
In closing, I'd just like to say that Puerto Rico is part of the United States. These are American citizens, and I believe that the federal government needs to do a better job protecting them.